Hello everyone, I'm Michael and welcome to Automazing. On this channel, we will be delving into the world of car enthusiasm through various types of content. One of the types of content we'll be featuring most on this channel will be interviews with various people on their cars and what makes their cars special, unique, and interesting. At the end of every episode, we will be putting each car on the dyno right here behind me, and we will be seeing what the real world power output is. So my first guest on the channel will be Rafi from RR Racing. Behind us, we have his supercharged Lexus ISF track car. So Rafi, when you started RR Racing, why did you choose the ISF as a developmental project? Obviously, in the E92 M3, B7 RS4, super saloons from that era, have a lot bigger of a world for modification. Why the ISF?
Well, first of all, we wanted to start with something reliable. And if you want to do that, you start with a Lexus, not a BMW or an Audi. So that's one reason. But the other reason is, look, it's a super unique car, very rare car. There's only about 6,000 of them out there. What I like to say is there's less of these cars than there are Ferrari 458s in the world. So yeah, it's a unique car. It's a very special car. And basically, it's a great basis for modifying and for improving. The F brand put a lot of performance on the table, but it also left a lot on the table. And that's where the project comes in, making it better, extracting out of it everything you can extract out of it. And that's what makes it an interesting project.
So when you started developing performance parts for the ISF, and you were looking for power improvements, why did you go for a supercharger rather than a turbo or actual engine work? Why a supercharger?
Well, that's a good question. Certainly there's other options out there. You can turbocharge something, you could do engine work, you can supercharge. The reason I went with a supercharger is that there simply was not enough space to do a turbocharger properly. In order to do a turbocharger properly, you got to put the turbos really up close to the engine, where they're getting the best heat, the most heat, and the fastest spool up. And in this case, it's just no room there at all to do it in a sort of practical way. So we chose to go the supercharging route. And it's much more of an easier bolt-on type installation. And we chose to do a centrifugal supercharger, both for installation reasons and for tuning reasons, and because we wanted to make the car manageable. The car already has a decent size engine. It has a decent amount of torque. So we wanted to give it a very linear power band, especially for track use, make it very easy to handle. The power. Although it is very powerful, it's also very easy to handle the power. It's not a car that's going to scare you.
I see. So drivability was of the utmost importance.
Absolutely.
So just looking at the ISF just now, I can see a host of various upgrades you've done already. Obviously, aero, engine, suspension, brakes, everything. Can you just go through a quick summary of what you have done so far to the ISF? Yeah,
sure. So actually, we didn't start from the supercharger. We actually started from suspension work. And you know, when you have a bigger, sort of heavier car like this, suspension is actually where some of the biggest gains are in terms of the feel of the car, in terms of the performance of the car. Certainly Lexus as a brand, you know, they're limited in how hardcore they can go. Yes. Their intent with the F brand was not to make a track car, at least not in this iteration. And our intent is, yes, to keep the car reasonably comfortable, but let's make it a track-worthy car. So actually the first mod we did was the lower control arm bushings, and that was just amazing. That we were able to reduce inner tire wear, get really amazing steering response, which was one of the drawbacks of this car. And after that, we followed up with a partnership with Penske Racing Shocks, and we developed a two-way adjustable suspension for this car, which just totally transforms it in every way, especially on the track, but is still totally comfortable on the street. Beyond that, once the car felt great and was handling great, we went into the power modifications. Initially, we were doing full bolt-on type modifications where we would modify the exhaust system, the intake system, tune it. And beyond that, the real challenge was how to supercharge the car. The big challenge with Lexus is tuning. Not much is known about the sort of inner workings of the ECU.
Yeah, not much has been done.
Yeah, not at all, really. And it's not like other makes of cars where a lot is known, like perhaps some GM cars or BMWs or Porsches, any number of other cars. The ECU is not well known on this car, and that's something we had to develop in order to make the supercharger a reality. Because supercharger requires some pretty heavy duty tuning. Initially, we could not tune the ECU, so our plan was to use a standalone ECU, and we were about to embark on a huge program to reverse engineer the CAN bus system and run the entire car on a completely separate ECU, which would run both the engine and the transmission.
Wow.
Yeah, so that would have been a big project, but just as we were about to hit and embark on that project, we managed to get into the ECU. So that made life easier and better for the entire Lexus community, because we were able to supercharge the car in a more economical way, rather than using a standalone system. And then we just kept upping the power sort of in increments. We were running about 550 horsepower initially, and then we just kept increasing the power the more confident we became with the engine and with the drivetrain, and we just kept tracking it and testing it and tracking and testing it and continuously upping the power up until today. And right now this car is now 40 track days into development testing.
Wow.
And it is making a lot of power. We'll find out how much power it's making. But
of course, I'm sure everyone's looking forward to that.
Yeah. So that's basically the iteration of everything we've done to the car, starting from suspension, then going to power. Of course, there's other modifications here and there: brakes, seats, safety improvements, cooling. A lot of cooling improvements. When you're making that much power and you want to make it track worthy, you need to do a lot of cooling improvements as well, because obviously it wasn't designed for that kind of heat and that kind of use on the track with that kind of power. But the essential drivetrain remains unchanged. The transmission remains unchanged. The engine remains unchanged. And that's one of the beauties of this car.
Yeah, of course. Because I know a lot with BMWs, other cars, to tune them, you have to obviously make major alterations to the drivetrain, build engines, gearboxes, everything.
Yeah, to a high level, oftentimes, you have to do those kind of things. It's rare that you can take a car to this level and keep things more or less stock, except for cooling modifications and things like that. Now, if in a higher mileage car, you may have to do some updates, and that's normal. But if you're starting with a lower mileage car, it's amazing how durable these cars are.
It really is, yes. So obviously you've been working on the ISF, other F cars, for quite a while already. You've already done a lot to these cars. Do you have any other plans in store for the ISF? Do you have any other project cars in store?
Well, the ISF is, just a continuous improvement project where we just keep upping the power and taking it to the track and seeing where the weak spots are. Again, this car was original right up until this past winter. And then we decided to refresh some internal parts. We decided to modify the transmission to handle more power. And then going into this summer, we're gonna just really hammer it and see how much power it can take and how much heat it can take on the track. So that's gonna be really interesting, and we're looking forward to that. At the same time, over the past well over a year now, we've also gotten into the German world of things with Porsche. And we developed the world's first supercharged 911. So that's another continuous project, maybe even a project for another future video of yours.
Yes, thank you. So, thank you, Rafi, for that, for your time and for that little in-depth view into all the work you guys do at RR Racing. I'm sure everyone now is looking forward to the next part of the video, where we're going to take the ISF onto the dyno and see how much power it really makes after so much development.
The relentless development of this ISF has made itself evident in the dyno run. The headline figures 734 wheel horsepower and 602 pound-feet of torque at the wheels, more than double the power of the original car. However, part of the appeal lies in the car's drivability, demonstrating that modified cars can have their cake and eat it too with high performance and power delivery that won't introduce you and your car to the nearest tree. If you would like to support this channel, please like, comment, and subscribe.